We're live.
We are live. We have 4 people joining us. Okay, so.
Sorry.
Now we lost our lighting.
It's 6 o'clock automatically when the lights go off.
We'll get our lighting back. Welcome back,
Sorry about that.
So welcome to the class. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to see, to give some people some time to join us, and then we're going to get started. Thanks everyone for being here, and we'll get started soon. No one else here is going to make noise. So. Shut all that off. Okay. And comments will come up over there.
Oh, we lost someone.
Yeah. Lost someone else. Robertson actually has a thing every one of his. He's given 3 classes so far, and he has a thing to start exactly on time.
Let's start.
Thing, so we can do that, even though we're 1 minute late. So Robertson we'll do better next time. So I just want to welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is our first class that we're doing with a bit of a different topic, with a bit of a different spin. So hopefully we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it's helpful to the alumni, to the viewers, and if it is, we'll do our best to do more of these. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Benjamin Lerner. I'm a Cincinnati alumni. I've been there for 3 years. I had a great time there, and now I'm involved with the alumni program, which we do videos such as these and try to see what kind of value we can give back to our alumni and see if we can keep in touch and stay as a community together. And I'm here with Abi Vail, who I'll let introduce himself, and we'll take it from there.
Good evening, everyone. Like I said, my name is Abi Vail. Rabbi Yaftzin and I go way back, from kindergarten straight through elementary, high school, and then we did smicha together in Toronto. And then we got married, and then our paths veered. He went into education, into chinuch, and I went into business. I went to college. I got an accounting degree, CPA, master in taxation, into accounting profession, etc. for a number of years. I guess really we can start in we're talking about business and we're talking about education. My education obviously was in Yeshiva many years, but Gershi and I went to Lubavitch Yeshiva on Ocean Parkway. And while many people have lots of complaints about it, especially back then in the 80s, early 90s, wasn't necessarily, the curriculum wasn't as set as it is today. But the one thing it did have, and that I appreciate, especially later in life, was it had a secular education. Gershi and I were classmates both in Limudei Kodesh and Limudei Chayil, and straight from elementary school into Chayvei Torah. When in high school we went funny thing is every year in high school we were in a different location. Mm-hmm. The first year we moved to Crown Street from Mesivta. The first year, then we moved to, but the English department was in Ocean Parkway. So at lunchtime we traveled to Ocean Parkway. The second year they moved Limudei Chayil to Crown Street, and the third year, Shir Gimel, when we were 11th grade / 12th grade, because we graduated after that 1 year, after 11th grade, was in Chayvei Torah. And looking back, I'm very grateful for having that education. And I'm looking around these days, and I don't see, even though the education wasn't perfect, it was far from perfect. We didn't have the strongest secular program, but we learned the basics. We had, we learned math, we learned science, we learned history, and that allowed me, when I decided to go to college, it allowed me to skip a number of classes, the basic intro to writing and intro to mathematics, allowed me to get a leg up. As someone else, other people who came in from non-Chabad schools, that they did as well, as opposed to someone coming from Eritrea or some other, and didn't have a secular education, had to really start in remedial classes, and spend a whole extra year in college. So that I do appreciate that, and I look around these days and I don't see that. And I'm actually a little nervous. My son's in 8th grade, and I think we are failing our kids in that. But I guess I'll stay away from that topic right now. It's a little touchy for people. I just don't see a high school out there I see great Masiftas, Gershi, doing a great thing out in Cincinnati, but all our Masiftas are geared towards that one. Whether they all do the same thing. They're all great Limud Kodesh, and none of them are really outside of LA, but they don't take they only take local boys. So that is something that, when you say yeshiva, the business, my early years that I had that in Abab Yeshiva straight through high school, I don't see that available right now. And therefore, what's going on today, it's going to be more of a personal responsibility on the parents and on those high school students to make sure that when if they decide, hey, I want to go into business, I want to go to business or college, it's going to be more of a personal responsibility to make sure to catch up. I had it. Gershi had it. Our classmates, those that wanted, had that basic foundation that we were able to simply go from there. Even though I graduated, Gershi and I graduated high school at, I think we're just turned 15. Let's see, just turned 16. Right after our 16th birthdays, we graduated high school, and then we, went to Zal, and we went to Shlichus, Smicha, and we didn't touch, we didn't learn anything further. And it was many years, it was 6 years before I went back to college. But I had all that foundation.
So I guess obviously it's part of what we want to speak about now. Knowing that yeshivas don't necessarily have that advantage, as you say, that you did. I guess that's one of the purposes of a talk like this, to give Bachrim who want to go down that track, who want to be in yeshiva and are committed to the yeshiva system, and they want to excel within that system. But at the same time, once they're done with the system, whether that's after Zal or whether that's after Shlichus or Smicha, want to go into the business world. And obviously, the business world can mean so many things. But just the generality of it. So let's start with the actual yeshiva life. Would you say that putting the secular studies that you had in yeshiva aside, were there advantages that you found or that you gained throughout the yeshiva experience, which you don't necessarily feel you may have gained if you were in a traditional school?
So, we've been bringing about this many times throughout the years, especially when you're in yeshiva, and there's definitely in yeshivas, don't go to college, and be a shliach or stay in chinuch, etc. And they espouse the advantages, obviously, of what yeshiva gives you, and the advantages that everyone says always is there's definitely the independence, right? There's the chutzpah, there's the that does help you when you go into business. There's no doubt that there's an advantage of that. But there are disadvantages as well. Obviously, it's the lack of basic education, but the number one thing, if you want to say what's a disadvantage, let's take a step back a second. When you say go into business, you said it's a wide range, and it is a huge range. But when I was asked to give this speech, I was thinking about it, and I think generally there's two paths. Whether you're talking about business or you're even talking about in the chinuch, there's two paths that a person can go on within business. There's working for someone else,
Okay.
and there's working for yourself. I didn't actually. I stopped that when I went to yeshiva, and then I got married. I went to college. I didn't give all the details of my history. But I decided I'm going to college. I was always comfortable with numbers. I was like, all right, I was good at arguing and good at numbers, so I can either become a lawyer or become an accountant.
That's some good mashgichim.
And that's like, okay, so those are my two options. And I said, lawyers saturated. I believe I could be a good lawyer, but I don't know if I could be a great lawyer. And there are a ton of, so if you like lay down, here's the attorneys from here, top to bottom, maybe I'll be 50 percentile. And if you look around, the lawyers who are at 50 percentile, some of them make it, some of them don't. But I looked at the accountants and I said, there's pretty much, I think I could be top 75% of accountants. And although it won't be as successful and I won't, you never be rich as an accountant. I said, you know what, that's a nice steady income. I'll work hard and, my dreams, all right, I'll work for the Big Four and I'll become a partner. And I know what it meant to be a partner in the Big Four at that time. So I went, you know what, I'm going to work for someone. Even as a partner at the Big Four, you're still working for someone. It's that path. I was never a risk taker. I was never an independent, go-getter, as in, risks. I'm very risk averse. But so the yeshiva benefits, that's generally benefits someone who's less risk averse, who has the chutzpah to go out on their own. That wasn't necessarily my path. So I said, all right, if I want to succeed, if I'm going to be working for someone else, then I have to go to college. Because if you don't have a degree and you're working for someone else, your success is tied to someone else, and you'll always be working for them. And even if you have a good job, if you don't have a degree, you don't have the ability to become a professional, and you're working for someone, then you're a store clerk, you're a salesperson, your ceiling is not very high.
I'm assuming there's also a lot less security without a college degree if you're going down that path.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, I have friends that, started out working for people, and they're still working for the same people. The business's success is beyond, beyond successful, and they're obviously making a lot more money than when they started, but there's a ceiling. As opposed to in the professional world, if you get, if you plan on working for someone, there's a higher ceiling. There's still a ceiling, but it's a much higher ceiling. As opposed to if you are willing to take a risk, that's your nature, you're a business person, you want to be the person in charge, then what the yeshiva will give you, the advantages are great. They're phenomenal. Because the yeshiva will allow you to succeed in many different ways. That is an advantage of yeshiva. That you don't have to be the best learner, especially in Lubavitch. You don't have to be the best learner to be successful in yeshiva. You can be an average student, just don't fail, come on time. And there are other outlets. There's Mifsayim, there's various different things. You can arrange programming, and those all lead to, if you know how to manage a program, you know how to open a business. Not the same way, but it's the logistics. You understand how to get people to a table, how to run an event. Those things do help you in business. When I first started out, I had no idea that I would be opening my own business down the road. So I honestly went down that path. And the advantages of yeshiva to me was like, all right, actually, that chutzpah got me in trouble. Because when you're working for someone else and you're working as part of a team, and yeshiva teaches you to, speak your mind. Obviously, sometimes with respect, sometimes, especially in Lubavitch system, not so much with respect. That led to one of my biggest failures in business. But
and then once you went on to you said now you do have your own company, something that you started yourself.
right.
Would you say that so to speak, the advantages that Yeshiva gave you, quote unquote, started to play a role or kicked in later? They didn't. Okay.
No, and that's why I thank God that I have a partner. I'm going to take a step back again, and I'm going to give you the rest of my history very quickly.
Okay.
So I got married, and I decided that I'm going to go to college simply because, again, I'm going to work for I'm not going to start a business. I didn't have the vision. I don't have the drive to do that. I do have the drive to put in the hours and work hard and diligent, but I don't have the vision. So I went to college. I worked my tail off to do it in 2 years because I was starting a family and I had to support them. So I worked full time. I went to college at night. Went through the entire accounting program in 6 semesters. So I worked 2 regular semesters and 2 summer semesters and graduated. And had luck. And a common theme you're going to see throughout my story is mazel. I was lucky. The first step was I was graduating college or semester before I was graduating, I started looking for a job, and I thought, hey, yeah, I was looking back, I was so foolish. I was so ignorant of how things work. But I was lucky that where I was working, I had a coworker whose I think was her uncle was a partner at Deloitte, and as well as a friend who was at Deloitte as well. He was part of recruiting. I gave him my resume. I gave her my resume to give to her uncle, and the resume ended up on someone's desk, and they saw both of them. Oh, and I trust this person. I trust this person, and someone else dropped out, and they had a shortage and need another accountant. You're supposed to apply in accounting at Big Four a year and a half before they hire you. I was doing 6 months, so I was way behind, and I lucked out, and I got the position. So I started at Big Four, at Deloitte, and it's accounting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the hours that we put in there, but there are weeks that you work 100-hour weeks. Wow. During busy season, and especially in the tax department, we work 7 days a week. So Matzah Shabbos, it's the winter month, so Matzah Shabbos is early. 5 o'clock, by 6 o'clock, I'm at the computer working till 2, 3 in the morning. Wow. All day Sunday, all day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're leaving early. There are Thursday nights that I stayed all night in the office. It's crazy, but again, that's what it takes to succeed, and that's the keli you have to make. After 4.5 years at Deloitte, that's why I said my chutzpah got me in trouble. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. Anyone who knows me knows this. I sometimes have to learn how to keep my mouth shut, and I didn't. I've learned it since then a little bit. Need to learn it more. And it got me in trouble, and I spoke to a partner as if he's my friend, and had instead of one-on-one, it was in front of other people, so it didn't rub him the right way, and other people saw that and like, huh. And I went from being the highest rated person in my group of 100 people to
in the doghouse.
Oh yeah, into the doghouse, and 2 years later, I was like, that's it, I'm out the door. Went to another accounting firm and started again, very high, but I saw the 100-hour, the workload wasn't lessening. Matter of fact, it was getting harder. And at that point, I was, had a couple of kids at that point already. I wasn't, this is, Shem Rishena, where, all right, you have to put up, you have to deal with your wife putting up the fact that you're not home, but now you also have your kids calling you, and it definitely takes its toll. And one of the busiest, times, I came to basically after staying up all night Thursday night and working, I came to shul and basically fell asleep in shul. And one of my friends told me, I said, "Hey, are you looking for a change?" And I said, "No, not right now." But then when that season was dying down, that it was Purim time, I went over to him. I said, "What did you have in mind?" And he was starting. He had an established business, but he had a new silo to his business that he wanted to start, and he needed help with the accounting. And we worked out the deal, how it would work out, and I took the opportunity. Now, aside from Mazel, you have to recognize when the opportunity arises. That's also a big thing. And when I said earlier, I said I didn't have the vision. I generally don't have a vision to see a business and that's the potential. Other people do. I didn't think I had it in me, and that's why I went to college, because I need set a straight road. This was my first turn off that road, and it started off very smooth for the first 6 months. Got a little rocky. Took another hard right, and then I ended up here. What happened? So I started off working for my friend, and lo and behold, my brother-in-law ends up sitting right next to me. He's that visionary. He's the person who went to Elitera, had no secular education, and no interest in going to college. He's well read, but he's not. He never went to college, never went to high school, never went to elementary. He went to Elitera. He might have gone to blast class or something. But he learned how to read, whether it's from his parents or some other program, and he learned basic math. He learned math on his own, but he was that business mind. He went and I don't even know what age when he finished smicha, and he's like, "All right, I got to do something." And he went to an investment firm somewhere in 5 towns that a shliach hooked him up at, and he started all the way at the bottom of the chain in the quote unquote mail room, doing cold calls. And he saw all right, this is a path I can take, and I can eventually go on my own and figure things out. So he had that vision. And we ended up sitting next to each other, working for my friend, another classmate of Kershis and mine. And after 6 months, we hit a few, probably about 9 months in. He hit a few bumps in the road with them, and I hit some bumps in the road with them. And he decided, again, the visionary, I'm going to go on my own. I helped him out. I found him an investor, and we ended up, after basically decided after he just went off on his own and found it, it's like, wait a second, why don't you come join me? And really, since then we've been on our own. But for me to go from an accounting path to working 100-hour weeks and just do, follow that step by step, start off as a staff or to senior accountant to manager, etc., with the senior manager titles down the road, with that very clear path, went to totally unknown. And that was the hard right turn that we did, and we ended up, thank God. It was very funny. Our first week in business, we did a deal, and we went from 300% profit, 400% profit in that. We took a large sum of money, before we started. When we started going our own, and I took my money, he took his money, and we got an investor. We put it all together, and we took, let's say, I think it was 10% or 20% of what we had raised, and we put it into one deal, and it had tripled overnight or something. And we thought, that's it, we're golden for the year. And it's stock market, things happen, and we went from 300% up to gone overnight.
Wow.
Lost every penny of that investment. So we started off strong, and but Baruch Hashem, again, Mazel, and Yankee does his thing. He does all the deals, and I do the accounting side, the compliance, and I created a system for us that over the years, I'm pretty much hands off on that system. It's running very well. Yankees, still finds the deals, and we've now branched out into real estate and basically whatever comes our way. But we've, like I said, from what I thought when I graduated college and my decision, hey, should I go to college? It was, I did never envision myself where I am today. So any decision you make when you're 20 years old, 22 years old, you think, oh, I want to end up here, so I'm going to follow this path. Mensch straft Gott lacht.
But at the same time, we still we have to have our own plan. We have to try to do what's best for us.
No, absolutely. And I was speaking to another friend of ours, another classmate, and he said, "Hey, Gersh, you asked me to give this class," and I'm like, "I don't know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna get up there. I'm gonna say mazel, 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 mazel." And he's like, "Abi, don't shortchange yourself. There's mazel. You create your own mazel. You have to recognize the opportunity. You have to put in the work. You have to." I forgot exactly what he said but basically, he's like, you have to recognize the opportunity, and you have to put in the hard work and the effort to be successful. And you have to be also willing to change, not be set in your ways. Recognize in accounting something called sunk cost, economics and accounting. You learn, and that you can be, you invest in a deal. You have to learn when to, cut it off and say, hey, you're just putting good money after bad. But this all started with the conversation just now was the pros and cons of Yeshiva. So the pros, again, Yankee took all those pros. Mm-hmm. I thought I didn't take any of those pros. I'm going in that straight college. But at the same time, it did give me that. It gave it somewhere in there. There was that kernel that you can do it yourself. You can be successful. You don't have to necessarily just go up this path. You can go to college, get the degree, and then make a hard right or left. So whatever, what you need to do. The one biggest negative about going to school, about Yeshiva, and comes in business, and you'll see whether you're going in a career, especially if you're going to a professional career. I chose college. I want to become an accountant. It's a nice segue. The biggest negative I had, or most people will have, Baruch Hashem, I had those two connections, is the lack of connections. Mm-hmm. Even if you go, most Bachrim who end up in college are going to end up in Pace. I'm sorry, not Pace. They're going to end up in Turo. They're going to end up in Sershner doing an accounting program. None of those programs will give you the connections you need to succeed.
So how would you, obviously you already went through this process and at this point in your life, you made those connections.
No, that's the thing.
Still not.
I didn't. I mean, for my professional career, I did. Meaning I went to Deloitte. I have a lot of friends at Deloitte. But within Deloitte and within Ernst & Young, within these big four accountants, and the law firms are the same way, there's the professionals and then there's the recruiting team. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of friends still to this day who I'm in contact with at Big Four. Mm-hmm. And they've gone on, whether they're in private, et cetera, but they're not really on the recruiting side. So when you go to Yeshiva, Gershi and I have a class chat with most of our elementary class till today. WhatsApp's great. It's allowed us to reconnect with all our classmates. There are very successful businessmen on that chat. And when Zalmi was Nifter, when we did a fundraiser, I started counting up like, oh, he's successful, he's successful, he's successful. And it was like, we did quite well. If you take that class and line it up with your average class at any yeshiva and your average high school, there's no doubt that we'll line up that number. We'll outperform them. At the same time, we have doctors. Sylvester Duran's a classmate's a doctor, but he left right after high school. But we have businessmen, Toby Greisman, myself. I'm an accountant. So we have professionals, but we also have a lot of people who are successful. So obviously there's something in yeshiva life that does help you, whether you notice it or not. But again, the biggest negative is not having, if you're going down the college career, is the lack of connections within the recruiting side.
So what kind of advice would you think to give Bachram who are going down that same path, so that they can take it, either they can look for opportunities themselves to connect and to network, or to be able to recognize the opportunities that may come across their path and say, hey, this is something which may seem just like a, hey, how you doing? My name is Benjamin. What's your name? To, this can really be something which will help me down the line.
So the number, if the Bacher, first of all, I wouldn't say to go to college before you're married.
Okay.
Unless you're already 24, 25, and you're not married yet. It makes it harder because obviously life gets in the way when you get married and you have kids. At the same time, if I would have gone to college before I got married, I don't know who I would be today. It changes you. It does change you. And if you don't have that strong foundation, but back to your question, you have to have a plan. You can't just say, you know what, I want to parnassa, I'm going to go to college. College is a tool. It's not success in itself. If you, first of all, know what you want to do. If you want to open a business, and you don't need to go to college.
Okay.
If you want to become a professional, you need to go to college. But if you want to be a professional, know what you want to do. You may not need to go to college. If you want to become a lawyer, you're not going to college. You're going to law school, which means if you went to Yeshiva and you did all the years and you have the aptitude to become an attorney, the one thing I would tell you to do, learn how to write. Make sure you know how to write before you start law school. Make sure you know how to write well, and study for the LSATs. Mm-hmm. And then you can take your yeshiva credits and go straight into law school. But have a plan. You don't just go to school. If you decide, all right, I want to make a parnassa, so I'm going to go to college. College is not the be all and end all. It's a tool. It's a key to get into a door. For accounting, obviously you need it. To become an attorney, you need a law degree. You want to become a doctor, you need that. To become a businessman, you don't need it. You need a few accounting classes. And how to prepare a business plan if you need an investor. Did you go to college?
So I actually started going down the TTI path, and I wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't for me. I knew that I myself wanted to be in business. So currently, I run a skincare company. We make natural products, skincare and body care products. Also, if you would have told me 3 years ago that this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be that I'm starting my own company, and this is what I'm trying to do, and this is what I'm growing it, I would have laughed, because it really isn't my passion. But
when you went to college, when you started,
mm-hmm.
Did you just simply want to go, I need a degree because I want to go into business, or did you, I need X, Y, and Z? What do I need to take out of college? I need to know how to run a business.
Well, so for me, I knew that I needed I wanted some, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, textbook information and education on different business operations and aspects of business, whether it was economics, whether it was accounting, whether it was finance. I wanted to have that information. I wanted to learn it in the proper way, and that's why I started going to college.
And then you realized you didn't need it.
And then I realized I didn't need it. But more so than I didn't need it, I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. For me, I was in school for, I knew, a certain amount of time to come out with essentially how I was viewing it, a piece of paper, which would allow me to then go to an employer and say, hey, I should be qualified for a job. And I always wanted to eventually do something myself or with a partner. I didn't really want to be the employee. I wanted to work for myself. And therefore for me it was the right decision. And then I started working. I still was doing a little bit of schooling on the side, and then I jumped around from job to job, trying out different things. Wasn't really happy with anything, and then I got a job with an e-commerce company. I was very successful with them, and that's when I moved into the skincare space and got involved with that. I would say on the college discussion that I have some friends that went to college and got their business degrees, and I definitely saw some value that they had over the experience that I had. So I would say that I had more experience in running a business, but they had information and in education which I was lacking. And I guess to go back on what you've been saying throughout this whole time, I guess something that we can give over to the viewers, so whoever's watching it, is that the individual, the Buffalo themselves, should really know what their strengths are, what they're good at, in order to help them with that decision of what should I be doing? Should I be going to school? Should I be educating myself? Should I put myself in the workforce? Would you say that's a fair thought process to have?
It's definitely knowing who you are is vital, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses is one of the most important things that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
My partner and I, what I'm good at, he's not, and what he's good at, I'm not. We make a great team. We trust each other. We're open with each other, and we complement each other. It's been the best thing that ever happened to me was sitting down next to my brother-in-law at a business and like, hey, I didn't know you do that. Wow, you do that? That works. And like I said, it just finding the right person to work with is that will same thing as marriage and life in general. It's like it's a partner. It's a partnership. If you need someone who's going to fill your weaknesses and your strengths are going to fill his. If not, it's like, wait, why do I need you? I'm going to do that on my own. So it'll lead to tension. It'll lead to like I can do that better than you anyways. So what are you giving me? So that's where a real partnership is great. It's when your strengths and his weaknesses line up perfectly. But we never answered the question about connections. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when you go to college and you're going to Turo, you're not building that with those relationships. You have to remember, what is Turo? What is college? College is a business. They're there to keep you there as long as possible. Mm-hmm. Any bacher out there who says, I'm going to college, I beg you, know what you want to do in college, take those classes, and do not talk to a guidance counselor. Their job is to keep you in college as long as possible. I met the guidance counselor one time because before graduation, you need to get her to sign off on your paper that you have all the requisites in order to graduate. That was the one time I met them. I went to college. I said, hey, I'm going. I want to become an accountant. So I went to the office. They had a paper and said, here's what you need to graduate. You need accounting one. You need accounting. What is it? Introduction to accounting 1, introduction 2, intermediate 1, intermediate 2, advanced, auditing, and they had a list of like 12 classes. And then that's for the accounting degree. Then they had just to graduate, you needed to have 2 writing, 2 math classes, and a couple other prerequisites that in order to graduate you have to take. Those are the only classes you need to take. If you want a business, because like you said, your friends graduated and it helped them, of course, there are definitely advantages of going to school and learning things. But know what you want before you get in there. And the connections you're going to make, if you were able to get into a Yale, into a Harvard, those are great connections. Those are classmates you're going to, will help you in your entire career. Mm-hmm. Turo's not necessarily that way. And yes, it's a key. You graduate, like I said, if you're going to work for an accounting firm, you're going to work for a law firm, you're going to work for, you become a doctor. That is a key in order to get in the door. You can't become an accountant without a degree. Mm-hmm. But if you're just opening your business, it's not a key to anything. It's the tools that you're going to pick up. So don't cheat if you're going to college. There's no point.
So there's actually a comment here. I'm going to read it off just so that we can address it. So first off, Eitan Kalmwood, so he says, can I get a winter lotion discount for YLC alumni? Eitan, you can contact me personally, and I'm launching a baby products company. So you're going to have to get married first and have some kids, and then you can come back to me, and I'll be happy to give you a discount. But Eitan says this. It's funny you say that because I think the opposite. If anything, you have to compare to what a regular secular person goes through. What connections does he have? I'd say Adira, but just by virtue of the fact that our communities are so tight knit, we have more connections.
We have connections. If your connections are in the field you want to go into. So I can, off the top of my head, I can name you 6 guys who are in public accounting in the Big Four. But that's it. If you don't have those, if those are the 6 connections in Lubavitch for Big Four accounting. And of those 6, really only one of you can get you hired. And it's almost impossible for him to do it. He can't do it for every guy. I know people reach out to me, say, hey, I know you're an accountant, you're successful. Do you have any connections for me? But there's nothing I can do. I don't, it's like I left that field and I don't have those connections. If you want to go into business, to someone to mentor you, sure, you can find the right connection. And like you said, Adraba, we're a close-knit community. Like I said, my WhatsApp group with Gershi and Shmuley and Tuvi and all my classmates from elementary, we're all together. We all help each other out. Anytime like one of the classmates had Yana Machler or something, we all chipped in. We all gathered together and we help each other out. But when it comes to going to college and having a connection to get into business, unfortunately, I don't see it.
So I guess what the question is, if you have a kid who goes to PS 231, do you see him picking up more connections and networking opportunities than someone going to
not in the high school. The connections come in college. Mm-hmm. If you go to not even Yale or Harvard, but if you go to SCSU, if you're going to University of Texas, UCLA, USC, any state school, one of these large state schools, they have placement departments. The Big Four go to those schools and recruit from there. Law schools go to the top law schools and they recruit from there. They're not recruiting from Turo. They're not recruiting from Sir Schneer. So you can get a nice Hamish of business will hire you, and so those connections are great. But connections into Fortune 500, I don't know of any, and I don't see, and certainly you're not going to get it going to the local colleges, the local Jewish colleges.
But I would say that even the local non-Jewish colleges wouldn't have that same advantage unless we're talking about more, top 10, top 20 schools.
So
right?
Not top 10. I mean, I would say top 100. I mean, again, the University of Florida. I mean, any large state school has a large placement department. Mm-hmm. If you're top 25% in any of those schools, and by the way, the one thing that we do have, we're smarter than the average yeshiva bacher is smarter than the average public school student. I went to Big Four. The education I got at Turo was top notch. I knew accounting better than anyone in my entry class, and they went to large schools. But I'm the only one from my class at Turo who got into Big Four. Out of everyone who graduated, I'm the only one who started off at the Big Four accounting firm. I knew, but my classmates knew accounting better than the person sitting next to me, who didn't know. Oh, I shouldn't swear. Didn't know anything. He didn't know basic accounting. He went to a fancy he went to a fancy college. It's like, I think one of them went to Notre Dame, and he just didn't know some basic principles. But so that's what I'm saying is the education you're going to get in Turo. I keep saying Pace. That's where I got my master's from. But Turo, the education you're going to get is great. You're going to become you will be able to become a decent accountant, a very good accountant, and you'll know the information. But you don't have the connections. I was the only one from my graduating class who started off in the Big Four. The other guys worked their way there and started off at 5, 6, 7, 8, up 10, and worked their way up the chain. But I was the only one lucky enough. Yeah, I had good grades. I had great grades. But it was that lucky connection that I worked somewhere whose uncle was a partner at Deloitte.
So let's say this is the reality where you have a large portion of the Lubavitch, say, community going to schools such as the ones that we're speaking about, which, as you're saying, doesn't have as much networking opportunities. Is there any way to go out and fish for those connections and fish for those networking opportunities and go to the recruitment centers so that you can make up that lack?
Not that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's have a plan. If you, like I said, I was lucky. I only started looking for a job a semester before I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
6 months before I graduated, I thought, hey, that's the time to look. Why are you looking for a job the year before? But the way it works, especially in the accounting field and law field, is that you're a year into school. In law school, it's the first year. You're going to get your internships. In accounting, it's the same way. After the second year of college, you're getting an internship. Where you get that internship is vital. Turo doesn't have those internships. So if you want to become an accountant, then you're going to go to Turo and you're going to go. I keep on like I'm knocking Turo. They gave me a great education. It's just the connections that you're not going to get there.
So I guess the best advice we can give is,
but I'm saying have a plan.
Arise.
Have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to become an accountant and you're going to go to Turo, don't wait for the last second to do that. Before you start college, start talking to people. And I don't want to put his name out there, but talk to Yosef Levine. If you want to become an accountant, he's a director at Deloitte, and he'll probably tell you go to YU or go to Brooklyn College, simply because they recruit from there. So you'll have an interview. So if you're successful there, you'll be successful. And to be successful, you need to be the top in whether it's Brooklyn College or first of all, you're competing against, honestly, like I said, Bacham are smarter than the average guy out there. We are, the advantage of yeshiva.
There's an advantage.
That's of yeshiva. You learn your whole life. You're studying. Even if you waste half your time there, I wasted half my time there. I still learned a lot.
Right.
I spent a lot of time. You spent a lot of time working your mind. Mm-hmm. Just sitting in a Gemara share, you're working your mind. You do grow. You do gain knowledge. You gain a way to how to think. So that is definitely an advantage that guys who are in high school here, they're spending half their day doing other topics. And, well, I would say a third of the day doing sports and extracurricular. A third of the day studying topics they're never going to use. And the other third, actually practical application of stuff. Mm-hmm. So the Gemara, you never, say when you learn Gemara, learn Chassidus, you're not necessarily going to apply that to, to accounting, mm-hmm. but it does. It helps. It's definitely sharpening your mind, and there's definitely that advantage. So if you go to Turo, you need to be the top 5% in order to get into these places. Mm-hmm. If you go to Brooklyn University or Brooklyn College or any, open. It's a large world out there. Mm-hmm. We're so stuck in Brooklyn. We're so stuck in. I gotta live in Crown Heights. I gotta live in. I moved out to New Haven, but there's nothing going on here. Mm-hmm. But there are so many different schools out there. If you make the decision, I'm going to college, go pick a place that has a non-Jewish program that will open doors for you.
Know your destination. Well, I guess what you're saying is know your destination before you.
You might not get there. You might take a right turn somewhere. You might take a left turn somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go to college and your destination is that I'm going to, when I graduate, I have a job in Big Four or top 10 accounting firms, you can't just go to school and expect it to fall in your lap. Mm-hmm. You got to work hard.
And that would work for not just accounting. That would work for whether it's.
I just use accounting because I'm an accountant.
Right, I understand. But for everyone that's watching, that would work for whether it's marketing or finance or anything like that.
Absolutely.
So if you want to get to one of the top professional firms in whatever it is that you're studying, what you feel that you're good at, have the path for that. And if you want to get hired by something a little more local or maybe by another
a Jewish
within
firm,
a Jewish company,
then
something
sure,
like that,
then you can
go down the route of
Correct.
something more.
But if
thorough
you want
knowledge.
to get in a top, investment firm, you want to get into a top accounting firm, you want to get into medical school, honestly, your plan has to be find a school, whether it's, obviously we have to live in a Jewish community, but there are other Jewish communities out there besides Brooklyn.
Right.
And that, I didn't do it. I was lucky. A couple of friends of mine were successful. We got, Menachem Yarmish is a successful accountant at Deloitte now. He was lucky. He got into McLaughlin right out of college, and he worked his tail off. But we're few and far between when it comes to successful in Big Four accounting in the Lubavitch world.
Right.
And the same thing for finance. The same thing for any professional field.
Okay. So let's switch gears a little, just because
Sure.
I see we're running out of time, and I'll just run through a few other questions, which I feel could be helpful. So I guess one is this. So let's go toward the point where you're a bacher is at whatever stage he is, whether he didn't go to school and he's getting an interview with a Jewish company. Say it's not a family member or somebody that knows him very well, so he has to go through the interview process,
Right.
Or whether he's at a recruitment center, or whether he's got into one of these big professional companies and they're sitting down with the HR department, with the recruiter, and they're going in for an interview. How would you say would be the best way for someone to prepare for an event like that? Leading up to it, and then during the actual interview, making sure that it goes well, and making sure that once you leave, you left a good impression on whoever's giving you that interview.
All right. First of all, even if you're family interview, never just assume you're going to get a job. If you're a family, still make sure that any job you're taking, an interview is not just for them to make sure you're a fit. It's also, if I'm sitting and I'm getting hired by a family member, what do you want from me?
Right.
Is this job really for me? Now, obviously, if we're talking the professional world, you're already gone to school for a couple of years, and this is a career for you. The first thing I would say is, in the professional setting, your first interview is not with an accountant. It's not with a Wall Street professional. It's not with the professional in the industry. Mm-hmm. You are dealing with the recruiting staff. Mm-hmm. So while the professional will overlook certain professional etiquette, the recruiting, that's what they base everything on. How you present yourself, mm-hmm. How professional are you? Will you represent their firm? Are you their firm? Can they see you sitting at their desk in their company, going out and representing yourself as a representative of their firm? So keep that in mind. So for that first interview, especially if it's entry level, campus recruiting that's those recruiters. All they do, they go from college to college to college interviewing students. Mm-hmm. And entry level. Later on in your career, when you're going for your second job, your third job, as you work your way up the chain, you're not going to be necessarily meeting those recruiters. The recruiters are going to be already the professionals. Mm-hmm. Where in those instances, what you know is vital. You have to have a good understanding of the job you're applying for. Mm-hmm. You still have to present yourself professionally. But the business etiquette doesn't have to be perfect when compared to the campus recruiting and the first job. Mm-hmm. So be professional, dress appropriate. Don't come in like this. Just make sure you're dressed appropriately for the position. Mm-hmm. And it's okay if, no one's perfect. I'm here talking, I've made countless mistakes, and oh man, how did I say that? I told us, we changed topics. It happens. That's a natural flow of a conversation. don't expect, you can walk away from the interview thinking, oh my God, what did I just do? How did we get onto that topic?
Mhm.
I would say that when I interviewed at Ernst & Young, somehow one of my interview, like I was meeting with a partner and I was being interviewed, somehow pancreatic cancer came up. And we made a connection based on, I knew someone who had just died from pancreatic cancer and her sister had just died from pancreatic cancer. And it's a conversation. It happens naturally. But, so don't be shocked if conversations go off in weird ways. It's not, you're not going there, it's not a test. You're not being tested on, all right, counting law 201, like, oh, what's the IRS code for, no one's going to ask you that on an interview. Later on, they want to make sure you're proficient, so you'll have a conversation about necessarily whatever the topic is at hand in that, like, all right, what's your experience? What did you work on? But in those initial interviews and even later on, conversation flows. Mm-hmm. And you have to go and be natural with it. And that's something else. Be comfortable in your own skin. Be honest, be open, not too honest and not too open. It's like a first date. It's nervous, but be professional.
I think a lot of people can use help with that as well, but we'll leave it we'll leave that for another day. Okay, so then I guess one last question before we go.
Follow up. It's learn proper etiquette. Meaning there is a interview etiquette. Like you bring your resume to come with a proper folder. Bring a copy of your resume, not on garbage paper, but on professional paper. You had the interviewer might have your resume, might not, especially depending on the type of interview. You hand in your resume to the person. You're polite, and after the interview, try to remember something that you connected with. Always try to make a connection with the person. The best interviews are when you completely talk about a different topic, mm-hmm. and he
gets to see your personality.
And you don't even bring it up; they bring it up. It's somehow like you mention something and they mention something, and before you know, you're talking about whether it's sports or who knows. It could be anything, and make that connection, especially if you remember something about the person's family or something they brought up. Mm-hmm. And in the follow-up email, just say, hey, it was great hearing about your travels to Israel. Something that they can remember who you were. Mm-hmm. Because generally speaking, especially again with the campus recruiting, and they're interviewing 100 people that day. Mm-hmm. Even the professional recruiting later on, they get a day of interviews and they interview 5 people, mm-hmm. 6 people. If you make that connection and you spark that connection, and then when your follow-up emails, thank you for your time. It was great hearing about your trip or whatever that connection was. You remind them. That's a good. Oh, yeah, makes them smile, mm-hmm. and that could be key.
Right.
So.
Okay. Okay. So then let's go lastly and say, as you said, there's getting a professional job somewhere as an employee, and then there's going out and starting something yourself. And obviously, if you're going to go into business yourself, you want to understand the market that you're going into. You want to make sure that you have a product or a solution that people are actually looking for or need solved. And as you mentioned, you do some investing on the side. So, how would you say, either from the investor point of view or from the entrepreneur point of view, what would be the most important things that need to be very clear and ironed out and researched in order to convince yourself, so to speak, that something is a good business idea and you want to go into it, or for the investor potentially to listen to what you're telling them and say, hey, this is actually something which makes sense and something which I would want to invest in. What are those key things to make sure that you have understood about whatever it is that you're trying to do?
Okay. Trust. I have to trust you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always work, but I trust you can trust the wrong people. But the number one thing that I've learned is, especially in the industry that I'm in, where it's high risk, high reward, The product is the product, but you have to trust the people. If you don't trust the people, the product can be great, and it's just not going to work out. You have to trust the people before you put a penny in. So if you as an investor are coming to me, if you as you're looking for an investment and you're coming to me, you have to get me to trust you, because, like I said, I think you're going to screw me over, or you're in it just for the short term, just to get my money, or to get me to give you my money, and then you're going to do whatever. I have to really trust you. So, and we've made mistakes. We've had real estate deals that we trusted the wrong people and blew up in our faces. We've had obviously investments in our main business line that blew up in our faces. Like I said, that first week we lost, that it just blew up. And that was, you learn from your mistakes. But again, the number one thing is trust. And obviously, after I trust you, you have to be able to explain to me personally, it's the numbers. To my partner, the idea. So you have to know your audience, who you're talking to. If the person you're going to for an investment is a numbers guy, make sure you have every number tied out. Make sure you know exactly what your costs are, who your targeted, what your targeted revenue stream is going to be. Don't just walk in with a scratch paper. Have a proper presentation that, if he's a numbers guy, make sure your numbers are tied in. If he's a visionary, make sure your story is right. I don't care about your story. Give me the numbers. Yankee's like, no, what's your story? Tell me about it. What's your background? And he's very conversational, and he's into, figuring out the person. So, and that's why it works with us, is I do one side of the business with the numbers, and he's going to do he's going to vet the person. And then if we both give the thumbs up, generally we're good.
So let's flip it to not the investor's point of view, but the entrepreneur's point of view, where I'm sitting down and I'm going through my different business ideas. Would you say that the same things apply to my own research into whatever it is that I'm interested in doing, which would mean that I need to make sure for myself that the numbers check out and that they're there, and that a plan for profit is there. 2, I have a good story to tell. And then B, I have a way to convey trust to whoever's going into it with me, or to my potential customers.
Absolutely, and that's where your few classes should help you build your business plan. Your personality will help you build your story. And if you are weak in an area, that's when you bring in a partner. A partner is not just the money guy. A business needs various personalities to succeed. If you have a very strong product, but you don't know how to sell the product, you're not going to succeed. So you need a salesperson. You need a manager, a business manager who's going to run the office. If you're just selling, well, I'm bringing in revenue. I'm selling $100,000 a month. Great. What's your profit? I don't know. There's more money coming in than going out. Well, that's a problem. Well, it's great until you have that shortfall, that 1 month where you hit a speed bump, and then you can be in big trouble. So it's not just the money guy you need. You need to make sure you have your bases covered, and sometimes that means bringing in a partner. Sometimes that means simply having the right employee. But know your weaknesses, know your strengths, and know your weaknesses. If there's a hole, make sure to fill it, or you won't succeed.
And everyone has weaknesses.
Everyone, sure. Right. Except for Abi Vail.
Well, I hope he's watching. I hope it pays off. Okay, I know I said lastly, but one more thing, and then we'll have like a few minutes to see if anyone has any questions. But just to cap this all off, how would you define success? If you were speaking to a bunch of Bachrim that decided after going through the Yeshiva system to go into the business world, obviously in whatever specific niche they feel comfortable or they want to get into. And obviously, I'm sure everyone's thinking of it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to have a big house and a lot of nice cars, which amen to everyone. But if with that or without that, what would you tell a bunch of young professionals what success means to you and what success should mean to them?
It's a funny question. I mean, you can't say it any better than Pirkei Avos, Ezu Asher Smech L'Chalkei.
And that
I mean,
that's the answer.
That's the real answer. But obviously, what's really successful is if you're happy with yourself. If you're a successful business person, but you stepped on people on the way up and you can't look yourself in the mirror, you're successful, meaning your balance sheet's great, but you can't look yourself in the mirror. So is that successful? If you were maybe you could step all over people and then look yourself in the mirror and be happy, like, hey, I'm fine. Some people can do that. And that's if being happy with yourself, your family, and obviously health is the number one thing that you have no control over. That's really going to be determined whether you're, happy in life, whether you're successful. Success equals happiness. Happiness is dependent upon your family, your health, not just financial. But I will say, it's a lot easier to be happy if you have money than if you don't have money.
And therefore, you have a plan once you're getting into business.
Exactly.
So
have a plan. It's all cyclical. Obviously, everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses, and they're going to be. And some people are going to be successful, and some people are going to be less successful. Recognizing that it is mazel. A lot of it is mazel. So don't beat yourself up for a bad month, a bad year. Things aren't working out. Be willing to. We spoke about all these different topics. Recognizing that this is not working, willing to make a change. The sunk cost is, recognizing that just because I've been doing the same thing for 5 years and it was successful for 4, and now it's not working, maybe it's time for a change. So being open and willing to change and work with yourself.
Is part of success.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't. Even if you're successful and you're making money, you're going to want to change something anyways. You always want to grow. Right. If you're not growing, let's say if you're not increasing, you're going down the escalator. It's an escalator. That's an escalator is going down. You're walking up. So if you pause for a moment, you're going down. So really, success is happiness and being happy with who you are. So. If you're married, you have kids, nachas is I would say a lot of things in success are not in your hands. So do the things that you can to be successful. Accept that everything is from the Abishter and you don't control everything. And hopefully the Abishter gives you what you need. He knows that. I mean, listen, we can pull out a bottle of mashke, we can bring, and it's, as much as I told Gershi, like I told you when I first walked in, I was like, he said, Abi, give a business class. I'm like, what do you mean give a business class? What do you want me to do? Pull out an accounting textbook and start reading off, teach you how to, have a balance sheet, an income statement. No, talk about your business. I'm like, what are you talking about my business? I was lucky, yeah, but college from yeshiva to college to business. I'm like, college. I'm like, Gershi, you don't want me to talk about to your boys that you should all go to college and you should all do
But it was actually interesting. I mean, just to go back, that you said that you wouldn't suggest someone to go to college before they got married. I found this surprise. To hear that coming out of your mouth, was interesting. But
how can I say? My opinion of marriage is young and dumb. Get married when you're young before every day that goes by, you become more set in your ways. And you start off life as putty. And you're like putty and you're in this world and you're sitting and as more oxygen hits you, you get harder and harder and harder. So if married at 18, if you find the right person, through a shidduch, obviously. And you're two putties that can mold together and evolve anywhere. But the same thing goes, once you're married, you grow together and you can do your own thing. And then when you go to college, you're less influenced by your surroundings simply because you have a strong foundation. You go home, you're like, oh, well, sweetie, let's, do X, Y, Z. Well, we didn't discuss that when we dated. That's not what we wanted. So automatically you're being held, to a higher standard per se, as opposed to if you're a single guy and you're that putty, and especially, I'm saying before you're married, if you're 18, 19, you start going to college, it's a slippery slope and it's dangerous. There's no question that it's, we spoke about going not just to Turo, and not the local Jewish schools, but to, if you really want to make connections, to, look around and expand. But there are risks. Specific subject that you would say contributed more than any other for your success? Well, I'm an accountant, so accounting definitely helped me. The funny thing is, nothing that I learned in school am I using now, but it led me to attain the knowledge I needed to be where I am today. So obviously everything in your life makes you who you are today. So the accounting classes, the tax classes, am I a practicing accountant now? No, but I learned that, that took me to Deloitte. Deloitte taught me X, Y, and Z skills, how to manipulate numbers, and then I applied that to the business I'm in now. So it's not, I learned this class, I learned that class, and I'm using that specific thing. It's actually the Gemara that I learned taught me how to take a piece of knowledge and manipulate it and take other lessons from it. So now when I learned accounting and I learned Excel and I learned, different various computer programs, how to manipulate, I combine all that into a mush, and it allows me to make that right turn into business and be successful, even though I'm still on the accounting side of the business. So there's not a specific class, but I mean, no, so there's not any specific class. It's just all of them together.
And I guess we'll take one more. There's one more question here. So as someone who's changed his business identity multiple times, where did you get your ideas from?
That's the thing. I didn't really change my ideas. It was an opportunity arose. I recognized it and I grabbed it. I was very stable for, in accounting for 6.5 years. I kept my head down, or, like accounting, taxation for many years. And then I picked my head up for a second because someone tapped me on the shoulder and looked around and said, wow, am I exhausted? And someone, threw me a life vest, and I could either put my head back down and climb up that ladder, and maybe I would be a partner today at Deloitte, or not Deloitte, but Ernst & Young, or some other accounting firm. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have been successful, but I might have been just beat up. Would I be able to look at myself in the mirror?
I think it's going back to your definition of success. If you're beat up like a rag doll, then
yeah, I'm a partner, but I'm exhausted. So I'm a director, and I'm exhausted, and I'm not happy, and I'm just at the same time, so I was able to. Number one thing, again, recognizing the opportunities is very important. It's not easy. I can't even tell you if I missed 20 opportunities along the way that I would have been in somewhere completely different, but still successful. Mm-hmm. So recognizing and willing to take a risk. In business, you have to be willing to take a risk. Every time, we're very deal oriented in my business that I'm in now. Every time we do a deal, there's a risk to it, and you have to just be willing to do that. God willing, you start your business. It's a risk. So you have to be willing to do it and put in the effort and the time and the energy. Also, that is another thing. I mean, nothing comes easy. Well, not nothing. A lot of things don't come easy, and sometimes you don't just see success when it's right around the corner. So it's a balancing act. I spoke about sunk cost and success right around the corner. How do you know when you're done and it's time to cut the cord, and whether it's just around the corner? Don't do it. And honestly, there's no way of doing it because you can't hit rewind.
Well, I guess if you feel fulfilled with what you do, then just because something's difficult, or just because you're putting in long hours, or just because it's taxing, doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing as long as you feel fulfilled.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds, like I just said, you can't hit rewind. It reminds me, I don't know if you guys read these books. When I was in elementary school, they went to the library, I brought them a book. It had multiple, basically, guide your own way through the book. Like you read a chapter, and end of the chapter, it's a decision. If you decide, turn down, make a right, go to page 72. You go left, turn to page 59, and you guide your way through the book. And half of them you die. The person, the character dies, or it's unsuccessful. And the other, there's a few successful endings. So if you're reading that book, I'll just go back. No, wrong decision. Let me go back. In life, you can't do that. Right. So you never really know. But keep on willing to take that risk, and recognize that when you recognize you made a mistake, and you recognize another mistake. So first of all, not every mistake it turns out wrong. Sometimes the mistake turns out right. Just keep on keeping on. It just don't get yourself down if in the current. Also, have a good friend. If you're in business, have someone that you can talk to outside of the business, whose success is not tied in with the business.
You're saying that, and it's definitely something that I've found so important throughout the whole process, throughout the process of getting the job, deciding, making sure you're good at the job, whether it's the actual work, or whether it's negotiations, or whether it's business development, or whether it's dealing with your partners. It was, I mean, if I can throw in my 2 cents, then having someone that you can talk to, a business mentor, someone who understands the world of business and knows what it takes to be successful is invaluable.
Yep. And again, someone who's not tied in with your success. It's very important that anyone you talk to, whether it's someone who works for you or your partner, it's their success and your success are tied in. So everyone, they're negated of it.
Right.
If you have a mentor who's not tied into your success, who's just a sounding board where, and also someone who you're willing to listen to. The hardest thing to do is recognize that you're wrong. So have a sounding board. Talk to the person. Hey, am I seeing this right? Am I too close? Seeing the forest from the trees? And it's having a mashpia. Right. That's what it is. It's in life, and it's also in business. You have to be able to talk to people, someone who's not in there with you, is not tied to your success. And I think that's important. All right.
Well, we went a little over, but
that's fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
You're welcome. Very nice meeting you.
Yep, me as well. And
thank you all for listening. I mean, again, I don't know if you got anything, and if you want to reach out to me personally, if you have a specific question, Benny has my contact information. Rabbi Austin has my contact information.
Yeah, I mean, you all hopefully got a text from me, so you can all reach out to me through there, and I can send you Abi's information if you want to follow up, and hopefully you found this helpful, and we'll try to continue bringing you different classes like this.
Just manager 463, you don't balance an income statement. I didn't say that. I said you have a balance sheet and an income statement, explaining what a balance sheet is, what an income statement is. If I misspoke, but I believe that's what I said. Like I said, I've made countless mistakes during this interview, just talking wise. I've talked over myself. And again, this is my first podcast, so give me a break.
Yeah. It's mine too, so we're in that together. Rabbi Austin actually thought, I mean, you had brought up the idea that Rabbi Austin should do this with you. And then Rabbi Austin kind of dumped this on me. And I was like, wait a second, this wasn't what I signed up for. But I'm very happy I did. It was good to meet you. And
that's very nice meeting you.
I hope this was helpful.
And success in your business.
Thank you very much.
Well, the main reason I wanted to sit with Gershi is simply because we don't have time to talk.
Right.
This would be a perfect opportunity. I'm forcing him to sit down and talk with me for a full hour.
Yeah, right.
So, but also to keep my kfira in check, and just my personal biases, and keep me on the straight and narrow.
We can all count on Gershi for that, right?
Anyways, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening. Again, you can reach out if you have any specific questions.
All right. Thank you all.